Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. So let's talk Darrion Williams, because he is another player that was at the NBA Draft Combine that has a very, very, very interesting story, to say the least, okay? So Darrion Williams, everybody knows the story. We'll be quick. We don't need to go through his entire career, but Texas Tech, obviously a key piece to what they did in going to the Elite Eight. Thing with him is that, he played his best late in the season, 23 points and 5 boards in that Elite Eight loss to Florida. 20-9 against Arkansas in the Sweet 16, 28-6-5 against Drake in the round of 32. Very talented player, 6'6", kind of, a little bit of an undersized guy, but he's a guy that can play down low, but he's also a guy that can step out and shoot three, shot 34% from three, was a very good college basketball player at Texas Tech this past season. The issue becomes, he went to the NBA Draft Combine last week, just like PJ Haggerty, sort of, I guess, a little bit like Boogie Fland as well, though Boogie Fland didn't stay for very long. And unfortunately for Darrion Williams, he just did not have a very good NBA Draft Combine in Chicago. So for people who missed it, listen, we're not trying to be disparaging or mean-spirited about how Darrion Williams played. It just wasn't very pretty. Day one, 0 for 5 from the field in 26 minutes. And as you can see on the ticker, thank you, producer Matt, 1 of 4 from the field on day 2, 2 points in 15 minutes the second day of the NBA Draft Combine. We're not wishing anybody ill will, but you factor in that he just did not play that well at the NBA Draft Combine. And it's also worth noting, he kind of didn't really measure the way that you had hoped, because listen, he's a player that's never going to get by on athleticism and that part of his game. And so what you're really hoping for is that you measure a little bit better, you play really well, and that you end up finding a spot in the NBA draft. Well, fast forward, and it was not pretty. I believe he measured like closer to below 6'5" than 6'6", which as a guy that's basically a 4, that ain't very good. He, the listed weight at Texas Tech was 245. I mean, even if you lost 10 pounds, 235 on a 6'4", 6'5" frame is tough. And so look, you never say never. We don't know, whatever he decides. This is not one of those podcasts where I tell people that they need to come back or they should come back or they shouldn't come back. I'll share my opinion, but I'm never going to criticize you with whatever decision you make. But I kind of think Darrion Williams probably is going to come back to college after that. Now, I will say, unlike PJ Haggerty, he actually was in ESPN's most recent mock draft. Now, I wasn't in Chicago, so maybe I'm the wrong person to ask, but just the people that I've talked to, it wasn't a good performance. I would be shocked if he actually stayed in the draft at this point. So now the question becomes, what could potentially be next for Darrion Williams? Because he's a guy that, for all the struggles in Chicago, I think he can be a great college basketball player next year. And the thing that's interesting about Darrion Williams, what I find very interesting about him, honestly, is that he was very transparent about like the idea of, I haven't even thought about college. When I put my name in the NBA draft, and by the way, he put his name in the draft while we were at the Final Four. So it was well over a month ago now. He has been going through the draft, and he never wavered from, my sole focus is being one of those 60 names called on NBA draft night. And so I think sometimes when these kids say, I haven't even thought about college, I think sometimes that's a lie. I think with Darrion Williams, I actually think he's telling the truth. I think he really hasn't really thought about, okay, if I'm coming back, where would I go? So that's what makes this recruitment interesting, is that even if he withdraws today, I don't think he's a guy that's going to commit 24 hours later. Boogie Fland withdrew on Thursday or whatever it was, I think Tuesday or Wednesday of last week. He kind of felt pretty good. Okay, Florida's going to be the driver's seat. He's on campus. He could commit here soon. Darrion Williams, I think if he were to withdraw, I think it would be a little bit of a process to see where he ended up. And it wouldn't surprise me, based on his own comments, if he took until May 28th to actually withdraw before deciding to come back to college basketball. So we'll see what happens. But the question obviously becomes, where would he go if he withdrew? Well, Cameron hit on the big one there, because this feels like rock chalk Kansas right here all the way. By the way, Cameron right here, I think he saw my notes before the show because this Cameron Julian says Kansas has to get Darrion Williams. We need another impact player with DP, who's Darren Peterson and Flory. Cameron, thank you for jumping in the chat, and thank you for stealing my take. It's not really my take. It's everybody's take. But you look at Kansas next year, Kansas, I'll say this. If they don't get Darrion Williams and they don't make any other big weird splash that we're not expecting, first time in a long time that I don't know that I feel like they have a team that can really compete at the top of the Big 12. Now, they've been disappointing the last 2 years, but they've had the roster to do it. It just hasn't worked out. Next year right now, though, this roster feels like it needs another impact player, to the great point that Cameron made. Cameron, shout out to you, man. I think your point's right on cue there. They have two really good pieces in Darren Peterson. He's right up there with the Bansa, number 1, number 2 in America in terms of top recruits. So you have Darren Peterson, you have Flory Badunga, but even Flory Badunga, he was very good in limited minutes as a freshman, but he's still going to have to make a big jump. And beyond that, I think what's also worth noting is that beyond, him having to make a jump, he's just kind of a low post guy. And so you have those two guys, but you need more pieces around those guys. I actually think some of the guys that Bill Self has brought in are interesting. Melvin Council from St. Bonaventure, Adrian Wojnarowski, I think he's actually going to be a pretty good player. I think he averaged about 14 a game at St. Bonaventure. But he's not a guy that you want to go to war with in the Big 12. Same with Jaden Dawson, who transferred from Loyola Chicago. And so all of a sudden you're sitting there saying, well, wait a second now. Think about some of these rosters that you're going to be going up against in the Big 12 if you're Kansas. You think you can compete with BYU with just Darren Peterson and just Flory Badunga? Maybe. Probably not. What about Arizona? Arizona's pretty good next year. Texas Tech is very good yet again. Iowa State is very good yet again. Houston, we'll see what happens with Milos Uzan, but I don't think they're going to miss a beat. And so Kansas needs a dude. Darrion Williams has been the guy that has been linked to them, but I think it's been linked because he's clearly a guy Kansas would want, and he makes sense. It's just a matter of whether Bill Self can get it done, because right now, like I said, I don't think Darrion Williams has really thought a ton about returning to college basketball. If it's not Kansas, a couple schools that I've heard, Ohio State's kind of an interesting one. Ohio State hasn't had a ton of real, major portal, additions. Like, they've added pieces. They added the kid from Santa Clara, but really it's about retention there. They bring back Mobley, who I liked as a true freshman this past year. They bring back Bruce Thornton. Bruce Thornton's another guy that I think a lot of schools were kind of eyeing, hoping he would enter the portal. But they don't really have that star dude that's going to put them over the top in what will be a very good Big Ten, where Michigan's going to be good regardless of what happens with Yoxel Lendenberg. Purdue's going to be very good. UCLA is going to be very good. USC should be improved. I'm sure Michigan State's going to be good. Indiana's going to be improved. Illinois is going to be good. So I'm going to need to go through the entire Big Ten. But again, Ohio State needs some dudes. So we'll see if Ohio State would make sense. The wild card here, I don't think it's a 0% chance that NC State could get involved as well. Now, I don't think if PJ Haggerty comes back, it's hard for me to imagine they get both PJ Haggerty and Darrion Williams. I respect Will Wade's game. I respect his NIL confidence. I don't know that you can land both of those guys, and who knows if there's even a spot for both those guys. But I would say Darrion Williams would be NC State would be a wild card, especially if for some reason PJ Haggerty either stays in the draft or decides to go pro. And then lastly, I'll just add, I saw some scuttlebutt from some Texas Tech websites and blogs and Twitter handles. I don't see Texas Tech being a variable, being a factor with this recruitment. You look at Texas Tech. I love what Grant McCaslin has done. I think he just got a contract extension. I think I just saw that on social media right before we came live on air. But Texas Tech has really, I think, is there a term to say other than recruited over him? I think when he entered the portal, I think Texas Tech just basically sat there and said, you know what, we love you. We'd love to have you back, but we can't sit around and wait forever. So Darrion Williams in the portal, my guess is right now he will eventually withdraw from the NBA draft, and I would say probably Kansas or Ohio State is 1 and 1A. Kansas, Bill Self, you better be searching under every couch cushion and in every cigarette content. Do they even make cigarette, what do they call it, ashtrays in cars anymore? I don't even know. But every loose piece of change in Lawrence, save it for the NIL for this kid because he's that good. And I think he'd be really good at Kansas.